Welcome back. A bipartisan effort is underway on Capitol Hill to help disaster victims in Louisiana. Congressman Troy Carter and Garrett Graves filed legislation to extend the duplication of benefits relief provision in the Disaster Recovery Reform Act for 5 more years. Now, simply put, the bill would keep the government from disqualifying victims for disaster assistance over a bureaucratic wrinkle in the law. Carter says, quote, "It's wrong to tell someone desperate to return home after a storm that because they took out a loan, they will be unable to benefit from future federal programs." Graves said, quote, "Their crazy policies have made it nearly impossible for families to recover, and our bill changes this trajectory." Early in the week, Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives were ready to pass a standalone bill to fund Israel to the tune of $14 billion, along with $14 billion in cuts to the IRS. Democrats weren't on board because the bill doesn't link aid for Ukraine and Taiwan. Senator Bill Cassidy says it appears the majority leader and the minority leader are finding common ground, and says the bill could be changed before it hits the Senate.
I would support a standalone for Israel, but I can understand the perspective of those who wish to wrap it together. And if you get Schumer and McConnell agreeing on something, that's probably the way. That's what's going to be presented to me as a senator to vote on.
Now, this has been a first major test for the new Speaker Mike Johnson on how he can whip votes together for his plan to cut federal spending. The battle over that standalone bill did take place on the floor of the House this week, and that's where House Speaker Mike Johnson pushed the bill that does not include Ukraine funding. Washington correspondent Rashad Hudson has that story.
This plan from Speaker Johnson is facing pushback from both Democrats and Republicans on Capitol Hill, setting up his first major fight as Speaker. House Speaker Mike Johnson told Senate Republicans Wednesday he is moving ahead with a standalone bill to provide aid to Israel. But Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell calls it a bad idea to separate Israeli aid from Ukraine, Taiwan, and border security.
I've spoken at length about America's clear national security interest in helping Ukraine demolish Russian military strength.
The bill House Republicans are pushing would pay for the Israel aid by slashing the same amount from the IRS.
Together, let's work to defend our allies from Hamas terrorism.
But California Democrat Brad Sherman rejects that idea.
The Speaker is bringing a nakedly partisan version of the support for Israel bill to this floor.
And Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is urging the Speaker to start over.
But House Republicans are asking a price for helping them by cutting off funding that holds rich tax cheats accountable. That ain't happening, House. It ain't happening.
Good news for consumers. After the Federal Reserve meeting, interest rates will remain stable for now. Washington correspondent Alexandria Limon explains why more rate hikes could still be ahead of us.
Today, we decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged.
The Federal Reserve says it isn't raising interest rates. Fed Chair Jerome Powell says the agency already raised rates significantly.
And the full effects of our tightening have yet to be felt.
Greg McBride of Bankrate.com says rate hikes work like the brakes on a car.
At this point, their foot's pretty far down on the brake pedal. Even if they don't push the brake pedal further to the floor, the car is still going to slow down pretty mightily.
McBride says that slowing economy helped inflation fall to 3.7%.
They want to raise rates high enough to get inflation down to 2%, but they don't want to raise it so much that the economy tumbles into a recession.
My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people.
So far, despite the rapid interest rate hikes, the economy has defied expectations and remained strong based on factors like job growth.
So the Fed's concern is with a strong economy and labor market, we could see inflation start to perk back up again.
That's why the Fed is still leaving the door open to future interest rate hikes as it attempts to get inflation to the target 2% without triggering a recession. In Washington, Alexandra Limon.
Up next, we'll have a look at the week ahead on your local election headquarters. Stay with us.